Hey there guys, welcome to my reaction video to the Separate Ways trailers that released for Resident Evil 4 Remilk. Don't expect any enthusiasm on my end, because I know this DLC is going to be a pile of garbage. Because if Resident Evil 4 Remilk is going to act like a pre-alpha and be the worst Resident Evil game I've ever played, the worst remake of a game I've ever played, and the worst game I've ever played in my entire life, I should expect the same from this DLC. And the content that they showed with these trailers, it was just as much as Resident Evil 4 Remilk. Like, they had a supposedly grand vision with Resident Evil 4 Remilk, and I did not see any of that. And all I just saw was this pre-alpha masquerading as a product ready to be released to the public. I mean, everything from the story to the combat to the character portrayals, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's all just been completely compromised. Like, this is easily the worst kind of reimagining of Resident Evil 4 you could have possibly done. And I don't expect the same from this DLC. But they released two trailers. So this first trailer right here, this released a couple of days ago. It showcases the VR mode, and it also showcases the Separate Ways DLC. And then they also released a launch trailer for the Separate Ways DLC today. And I got a chance to look at it a bit, and I had some reactions. But let me just showcase these videos to you guys. So as you can see right here, we have Resident Evil 4 Remilk VR, so it's using the PSVR 2, just like Resident Evil Village VR. I don't expect this mode to be good at all, and I know that because they're adding this as part of an update to an already existing game, the problems that are already apparent with Resident Evil 4 Remilk are going to be translated over to Resident Evil 4 Remilk VR. Because that was one of the main problems with Resident Evil Village VR, and Resident Evil Village VR is just not a really good experience at all. It's honestly one of the weakest experiences I've ever gone through with a VR game. And if you want to check out exactly what I mean, you can check out my playthrough of Resident Evil Village VR. I still haven't even gotten to like the final chapter because I just don't like it. It's just not user-friendly. It's so badly handled. There's a lot of moments where the mechanics are even worse than before, although they did fix some hitboxes though with Resident Evil Village VR, but that's not really fixing if they probably altered the way Ethan's model is read by the game. But yeah, it's a terrible VR experience, and I expect the same from this one. So that right there was the parry. It seems like your virtual knife, depending on the way you hold it, you can parry attacks, although I don't think that's actually the case. I think someone's actually pressing a button on the controller, and they're getting the parry that way. And you'll notice that this is on like easy difficulty because, of course, the parry sound that you heard was the partial parry. So I don't think it's going to be related to how you place your knife in front of yourself. It's going to be related to a button press again, but you still have to place the knife right in front of you somehow. I don't really know how they're going to do that. Now, see right there, he changed his grip. So it looks like they're taking elements from Resident Evil Village VR with its gameplay and incorporating it here. Now, I don't know if the changing of the grip is related to the parry in some way. But it's interesting. I don't know how Krauser's fight is going to be. I don't know if you can even call it a fight, though. I mean, it's a very lame reimagining of the cutscene fight with him, which had so many cool moves, and now you're just doing like very generic animations against him. It's really dumb. Yeah, so nothing to really see there. It's coming in winter, so they haven't even given the official release date. Now we have this. So this is what you've been waiting for.
Condor 1. President's daughter, Baby Eagle. It's likely she's in this village.
I'm seeing increased movement from Los Eliminados.
So we have Wesker right here, and it's really stupid how they're portraying the flinch animations. Like, they're trying to make it seem like they care about animations and like the feedback between the bullet and the enemy, but it's all just a bunch of lies. Because if you've seen the numerous gameplay I've shown of Resident Evil 4 Remilk, on hardcore difficulty and non-professional difficulty, it's nothing like that at all.
Increased movement from Los Eliminados. Don't get careless.
I am still not a fan of Wesker's voice actor. In fact, in these videos, he does say some things that just don't feel like Wesker whatsoever, and he does some actions that don't make any sense, and Ada also says some pretty dumb lines as well.
Copy. Ada out.
Hmm. So they're still gonna implement the scenario where Ada is in the village area while Leon is fighting all these villagers. I never understood that in the Separate Ways DLC for Resident Evil 4. It doesn't make any sense for Ada to be firing her gun or drawing the attention of other enemies and having Leon not notice her. I just find that to be very weird. I don't know if they're going to change that in any sort of way, but I doubt it. Because Separate Ways is a very odd way to align two stories together. So we can see her using the hook shot, so obviously that has to return.
What terrible actions will be done in its name?
This is a very strange quote. I don't really find Ada to be the kind of character to ponder these kind of questions. What terrible actions will be done in its name? I mean, it just feels like it's too on the nose that she's trying to be portrayed like a hero in this Remilk. I feel like in Resident Evil 6, she would have delivered much better lines that showcase a lot more ambiguity with her character. And, like, it wasn't so on the nose with where Ada's allegiances were, or like what exactly her morality was. But here, it really just feels like it, and what terrible actions would be done in its name. I mean, it's not like her to really ponder the actions of others and what they might do with the Plaga. And it's still really stupid how at the end of Resident Evil 4 Remake, she's walking away with the Amber, and Leon does nothing to stop her, and he's already seen just how extreme the mutations can be. He's fought Sadler, and he just lets her get away. And then Ada, out of the blue, is just like, what are you planning to do with this? To Wesker. I don't really understand where that came from. Like, from what mindscape did that thought come from to just ask Wesker, what are you planning to do with this? See, like, again, I mean, it's like these developers have never played Resident Evil 2 OG, Resident Evil 4, and Resident Evil 6 to actually understand Ada's character. Even Resident Evil Damnation, I could understand like the sense of ambiguity and morality with her, but like this is just so on the nose, and I don't really find this to be the kind of thing Ada would ponder.
Its name, and who will pay its dark cost?
And who will pay its dark cost? I mean, why is she trying to sound so poetic? It's a little odd. I don't know if it's just the problem with the line itself, or it's a problem with the actress. I don't know. I don't know why these lines just don't gel with me correctly. But we can see a couple of the areas here. So like this is an area that we've never seen before. I mean, I don't know if this is meant to be the Chapter 2 Valley area. Because like if you remember, in the Chapter 2 Valley area, there was an upper area that you couldn't go to. It was where that female Ganado was. And it looked like you could potentially boost Ashley up there, but I don't think you could. And maybe that's where Ada is actually going. And maybe Ada is going down those routes that Leon and Ashley couldn't get to. Or this is probably the Chapter 6 quarry area, because there were similar structures like this. I'm not really sure. It looks like this could be where you fight the El Gigante, because you do fight the El Gigante in the Separate Ways DLC in this Remilk. And this is kind of in an earlier point, because it's daytime, whereas in Chapter 6 it was nighttime. So I'm guessing this is probably right around the time Leon passed out from the Plaga within him. So we have the main hall area where Leon and Ashley meets Salazar. So she's fighting a bunch of Ganado. Look at that. I've always hated when cutscenes never portray the character's capabilities correctly. I mean, Leon is so useless with his gameplay in Resident Evil 4 Remake, and then you have all those cutscenes where he's rolling around and he's using human shields and the like. Like in Chapter 9, for instance, when he's separated from Ashley, it just looks really, really stupid. I don't expect much from the gameplay of this Remilk.
Find Lewis. Fetch me.
Lewis. It's Luis, not Lewis.
Find Lewis. Fetch me the amber.
So this is new. We've never seen this spiral staircase here before. Wonder where this leads.
Amber.
Have you changed, Ada?
That dumb quote. I hate how they have to bring up all those stupid quotes. Have you changed, Ada? Is that really what you want to ask Ada after 6 years? Like, they didn't even bother putting in more substance in that Chapter 13 boat scene when Ada is driving Leon to the island. They just instead opted for a completely useless quote like this that doesn't feel like the kind of thing Leon would say to her after 6 years. And why would he now be asking this kind of question after he's met Ada back in the castle area? It's such a dumb quote. But she's going on the jet ski, so I'm guessing they're trying to set up how Leon and Ashley gain access to that jet ski when Ada throws them the key.
Or are you just trying to use
And apparently she's above them at this moment. How the hell is that possible? And then Leon has to contact her. Weird.
me again?
Because in this world,
So you can use the hook shot in special circumstances to attack the parasite on this El Gigante, or maybe this is a cutscene. I'm not really sure.
someone always pays.
So there are some reused areas, but that's kind of to be expected because Separate Ways in Resident Evil 4, it did reuse areas, but they just changed the aesthetic slightly, and Ada was doing slightly different scenarios, and there were some new areas as well. But mainly in Chapter 4, though,
Because in this world,
because in this world someone always pays. That is, again, another line I don't really think of when I think of Ada. I mean, the only thing that could possibly be close to this is in Resident Evil 6, in the ending of Ada's campaign, where she says, "We're beyond sympathy at this point. We're beyond humanity." Like that actually felt like a meaningful end to Ada's arc in Resident Evil 6 before she had that call and just resumed her normal business. I mean, it's meant to showcase that sense of morality to her. I mean, that is the kind of quote I could understand. Like, if Ada said this in Resident Evil 6, I could understand. But in Resident Evil 4, I don't really see that at this point in her character arc.
someone always pays.
There's someone.
So she actually sees Luis directly, just like in Chapter 2 of Separate Ways in the original version. Only there seems to be more content with them this time around.
Who needs makeup?
And that someone is Leon and also Ashley as well. And we have the regenerators. Ada's encountering a lot more enemies in this Remilk version of the Separate Ways DLC.
Who needs makeup?
And it looks like she's going into that kitchen area, just like Leon did in Chapter 13.
Who needs makeup?
There's the Amber. I'm guessing this is when she's confronting Sadler. I think Sadler had the Amber sample in his hand or something, or stored in his attire, and then Ada managed to steal it somehow. Maybe this is after Ada has dealt with Sadler, because you do fight Sadler in the Separate Ways DLC when he's in his human form, and it's a really fun fight in the original version of Resident Evil 4. But in the Remilk version, I know it's going to be a terrible fight because New Capcom has completely lost all sense with designing well-designed encounters, and instead they favor really broken, stale, mundane, repetitive encounters.
Best not to ask who or why.
Best not to ask who or why. See, that's at least a quote I can hear from Ada, for
Or
sure.
why.
But this is the castle area in the morning. I don't know if this is still taking place when Leon is unconscious in the boat. It's interesting what they're trying to go for here. And that's the end of that.
It's what I researched for all these years, Ada. And I see the symptoms.
So this is different. So apparently in the Separate Ways DLC for Remilk, Ada is going to be infected by the Plaga. And I'm guessing this is meant to be an alternative scenario in Chapter 2 of the Separate Ways DLC, because in Chapter 2 of the Separate Ways DLC of the original version of Resident Evil 4, Ada was captured by the villagers and Vittorius Mendez, and she's about to be executed by a ganado with an axe. I don't know why they didn't think to inject her with the Plaga, and I never really understood how the Los Illuminados choose who to sacrifice and who to inject with the Plaga. That was always one thing that was very confusing, but unfortunately Resident Evil 4 Remake did not touch upon that detail. But it seems like in this case, Ada is going to be infected with the Plaga, and I'm guessing it's because of her capabilities. Maybe it's like a similar case to what Sadler wanted with Leon when he was infected with the Plaga, where he could effectively be a bodyguard. Maybe it's something like this. I guess it kind of makes more sense to infect Ada than probably with Ashley. I mean, Ada has access to the black market, to Wesker, to all these other organizations. So, like, that might honestly be more beneficial to the Los Illuminados' plans, rather than going after the president's daughter and just inserting her there. It was always kind of strange how they were planning to use Ashley. after she was infected with the Plaga. Like, how would she be able to transfer the Plaga into the president and infect him? I mean, this is not like the Type 2 Plaga, where the Type 2 Plagas from Resident Evil 5, after Tricell did some expanded research on the Plaga, could infect other individuals by removing an already mature parasite and putting it into the mouths of their victims to immediately take control of them. There was no egg stage or anything like that. Like, it was instant control pretty much. That's definitely something a little confusing. Maybe they would provide Ashley with some kind of mechanism to actually infect the president and his peers and the like. But it still wouldn't be that beneficial because we know that the United States government was involved with the production of BOWs. Although for some reason in Resident Evil 4 Remilk, they don't try to say that the United States government was involved in the production of BOWs. They don't even do this in Resident Evil 2 Remilk as well. Like Resident Evil 2 OG and Resident Evil 4 OG, they touched upon the U.S. government's involvement with the production of BOWs, but the United States worked with Umbrella and the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium. I assume they worked with the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium, but we know the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium is a conglomerate of many pharmaceutical corporations like Umbrella and Tricell. I just feel like infecting Ada, like this idea of infecting Ada is an interesting route to take, but I just don't think they're going to expand upon it in an interesting sort of way. Just like with Krauser, because remember, Krauser was apparently Leon's mentor in this timeline, and he's heavily indebted to the Los Illuminados. He's not allied with Wesker for some reason, and they retconned Operation Javier for some reason to involve the U.S. government doing something questionable, and there's no mention of BOWs whatsoever, and Krauser didn't do anything interesting with his mind games in order to play upon Leon's disillusionment with the United States government. Like, they didn't expand upon that in an interesting sort of way, and I don't expect them to do the same with Ada if she's infected. But, Tricell, I did mention Tricell, but you guys probably didn't know this, but Tricell was actually mentioned in the Separate Ways DLC for Resident Evil 4 OG. They weren't originally referred to as Tricell, they were referred to as S. They're mentioned in one of Ada's reports. And I know this because I asked the Resident Evil podcast team, and originally Tricell was supposed to be called Seashell, but then Capcom changed it to Tricell, which is a significantly better name than Seashell for sure. But I don't know if they're going to mention Tricell in this DLC. If they do mention it, then that most likely confirms that Resident Evil 5 Remilk will be made, and they'll ruin such a fantastic Resident Evil game and just completely ruin the entire story, all of the very descriptive lore, all the interesting character moments, all the history between Chris and Wesker, the characters like Sheva, the BSAA will be portrayed very weirdly in Resident Evil 5 Remilk. That's just what I'm expecting. The lore for Resident Evil 4 Remilk is a complete disaster. I just don't understand how they could make such a mockery of the original Resident Evil 4 lore. Like, how could a story constructed over the span of 2 weeks, as was the case with Resident Evil 4 OG, be so much better than a story that was constructed for at least like a year and a half, or maybe like 2 years, something? I mean, I don't know how long development of Resident Evil 4 Remake was, or when they actually got into the major stages of the story, but it totally feels like the story of Resident Evil 4 Remake was constructed over the span of like 6 hours. That's how bad the story is. That's just not what I'm expecting from this DLC. I don't think this DLC is going to make the story interesting or like more in-depth or anything.
There is this one thing I must do before I can recover the Ember.
So Luis is somehow in the castle. It was always very odd in Resident Evil 4 Remake how conveniently Luis was in the castle before Leon and Ashley, and they don't even ask how he's there. They just kind of go along with it. It was just very weird with writing like that. So Luis was in the castle for some reason. I'm guessing it was to get the amber.
Leon and that young woman, they're both infected.
Okay. But this is your last chance.
So this right here is Vertigo, or I'm guessing U3 now, because U3 was called something different in Resident Evil 4 Remake, and I'm guessing he's the second Vertigo, or I think it's a she, actually. I think Isidro was the male Vertigo, and I think some other girl got turned into the next Vertigo, because we know there were meant to be two Vertigo, but this time in Resident Evil 4 Remake, the second Vertigo is U3 now for some weird reason. But we never did see. Oh no, 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 no. The second Vertigo in Resident Evil 4 OG merged with Salazar and the Queen Plaga to become this conglomerate of a BOW that was essentially expanding upon the Queen Plaga's capabilities. And then in Resident Evil 4 Remake, we didn't see the second Vertigo for some reason, and instead, after only a few bullets, Salazar for some reason transforms into a very extreme BOW that doesn't even resemble a Plaga mutation at all. It looks more like something from the Megamycian. He's firing black liquid everywhere, and even Leon calls him a moldy son of a bitch. What the hell? What's up with that? Why would they turn Salazar into that? Like, why would they make the mutation so extreme in Resident Evil 4 Remake? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow the continuity of events that showcase the growth of the Plaga as more black market dealers and organizations try to expand upon its capabilities. And looking at Salazar's mutation in Resident Evil 4 Remake, it looks kind of like Irving's mutation, but Irving's mutation has a lot more sense to it compared to whatever the hell we got in Resident Evil 4 Remake. So bizarre in so many ways. Like I said, the lore in Resident Evil 4 Remake is terrible, but getting back on track, Ada is going to be encountering the second Vertigo, which a lot of people theorized would be the case, and it seems to be the case here.
What would I do without you?
Be parasite food?
That is such a horrible quote. Be parasite food. Just the delivery of that line and just the word choice and the vernacular there, it just doesn't sound like Ada whatsoever. Be parasite food. I mean, she could do so much better than that. It just feels like an amateur came up with these kind of lines. This is the kind of line you hear from someone who's not charismatic or anything. I mean, this is such a strange line for Ada to say, almost about as stupid as Ada the Encyclopedia from Resident Evil 4 Remake. Or like, it's secret weapon time, taking candy from a baby in Resident Evil 2 Remake with Ada. What an awful line.
Touch the ember. We'll meet up later.
No!
So there's the flip kick, and I can see the detection on that's a little bit weird. It somehow hits the guy on the left, yet it doesn't hit the guy on the right. That's very odd. But I think this is in Chapter 8. At least it looks like it. I think this is the part where Leon is doing that Sun and Moon puzzle in Chapter 8. It looks kind of identical.
No! Sorry.
So right here, you can see there's some kind of sensor on Luis. I don't know if that's some kind of tracking device or some kind of microphone.
What kind of a man leaves a lady?
And he somehow gets caught in the trap, even though the rope is right in front of him. How the hell is that possible, Luis? So bizarre. Like, how do you fall into that kind of trap, Luis? This is brand new, so you can use the hook shot to pull shields off. I wonder if you can use the hook shot for any other combat capabilities. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I mean, I don't know how beneficial this kind of mechanic will be. It'll likely have zero relevance in the gameplay. Maybe it will. I mean, I don't know. It could be an interesting idea to expand upon.
Sorry, Luis.
I don't remember the shotgun in Resident Evil 4 Remake having that kind of spread. Look at that. Like, at that range, the guy with the helmet should not be knocked back like that, because the shotgun in Resident Evil 4 Remake was really bad at knocking over enemies, because it had such a tight spread. The stumble mechanic, when you knocked one enemy into another enemy, was bonkers with its detection. Like, it was really bad. And the range on the shotgun just wasn't that good for knocking back enemies, but here it's entirely different. So Ada's shotgun looks to be a lot more efficient, or for all I know, this could be on easy difficulty, and they'll just ignore all this in hardcore difficulty and professional difficulty. But I can see she's using the same model shotgun. Like, the shotgun she's using is actually the same shotgun from the original Separate Ways DLC, which is nice to see.
It might be a while.
And it looks like... Oh, there's the Merchant's Flame. So this is in the factory area in Chapter 2. It's the part where Leon was captured and he had his gear stolen from him. It's that factory area. It looks very identical to this one.
Be a while. Sorry, Luis. It might be a while.
Sorry, Luis. What, is she suddenly having feelings for Luis? What is this? That's so odd for Ada to voice that kind of quote, like she suddenly developed feelings for Luis. In the original version of Resident Evil 4, Luis was simply a contact. Like an associate, not really someone that she would care for. I mean, what's up with that? I wonder what they're trying to go for with that. It just sounds very weird for Ada to do that. Hmm. Yeah, this is still the same factory area, so there's a lot more enemies this time. That's something I forgot to note. Like in the original version of the Separate Ways DLC, they put in a lot more enemies in these sequences. Like you were fighting way more enemies in single rooms compared to the original version of Resident Evil 4 to match Ada's capabilities as like a spy and stuff like that. That's kind of the reason why they did so. Also because Ada was a lot faster than Leon in the original version of Resident Evil 4. But that's problematic in this case because this Remilk handles its combat encounters very poorly. Like, I can't even begin to count the amount of times a combat encounter would begin. I'm just like, great, more of this boring nonsense. Like, I've never been so drained by gameplay in a Resident Evil game before. And for a Remilk that's meant to be a reimagining of one of the most engaging gameplay experiences ever with the original version of Resident Evil 4, it just gave off the illusion of engaging gameplay, and underneath it all was just a very bare bones, rudimentary model. And I would just wonder if there's going to be like arbitrary spawns, because that happened a lot in Resident Evil 4 Remilk, where you just reach a threshold of a room, and out of the blue, enemies would just pop into frame for some stupid reason. Like you're back in the older Call of Duty days. I mean, I don't know what's up with that. She has that crossbow. I imagine she's going to have to purchase that from the merchant. That was always very weird how the crossbow, that's like a staple weapon of Ada, even though she didn't really use it in Resident Evil 2, though. She had to buy that from the merchant for some weird reason, yet she had the blacktail and the shotgun in her inventory. At least with like the sniper rifle I could understand. But I imagine this DLC will do the same as Resident Evil 4 Remilk and hide a lot of its arsenal behind the merchant, rather than make some more like strategic gameplay and integrating the weapons in a natural sort of way within the natural world to find them, to make exploration feel worthwhile. Like, it still bothers me how, like, in Chapter 9 of Resident Evil 4 Remilk, when you backtrack back to that area where you fought your first Red Zealot, and you open that door, you don't get a Magnum like you did in the original version of Resident Evil 4. You just get a useless treasure. It's so redundant to put that there because you're already amassing on so much treasure as you're going through Resident Evil 4 Remilk, and it just kills a lot of the exploration that way. It's so stupid that they would do that. Like, I've never heard of a survival horror developer valuing treasure more so than ammunition. It's just so dumb that they would do that with the exploration, and I imagine it's going to be the same case with this DLC.
Stop wasting my time, Ada.
Stop wasting my time, Ada. I mean, I don't know if that's a Wesker quote.
Just get it done.
Just get it done. See, like, again, these don't sound like things that Wesker would say, and I don't know if it's a problem with the lines or a problem with the voice actor, because this voice actor is the worst voice actor for Wesker. DC Douglas from Resident Evil 5 captures Wesker nicely. Like, even in Resident Evil Code Veronica, I could feel Wesker with his voice actor, even though the voice acting in Resident Evil Code Veronica is appalling. But, like, when Wesker said in Code Veronica, "Let's just say I'm a ghost who's come back to haunt your brother," that actually feels like a Wesker quote, with the delivery of that line with the voice actor. And I could totally see Wesker saying such a quote as a way to haunt Chris, because he has a deep hatred for Chris. But here, I don't really see this guy as being this rival to Chris, or like his nemesis, or anything like that. And that's why these lines don't make any sense, because I just don't feel like this is what Wesker would actually say at this stage where he's at.
Gotta keep the client happy.
So it looks like we're going to be able to do melee attacks. It looks like the way it works is while you're zipping along, you can press the melee button when enemies are nearby. But I assume this is when enemies are unaware of you or something. But she's doing the kick, though, which is a standard melee attack that doesn't kill enemies instantly.
Client happy.
And this is interesting. So they brought in the ski lift section. I'm just amazed at the number of sequences from the original version of Resident Evil 4 that Leon went through. Those sequences have instead been put into this DLC, and Ada's doing them now. But this is in the island area, because we're fighting a mercenary Ganado here, or militia Ganado, or whatever you want to call these guys. And we're fighting a Garrador. This looks like, I don't know what this area is. Is this the mine area from Chapter 11, or is this a part of the lab area from Chapter 10 where you fight Vertigo? But I know that in the original version of Resident Evil 4, Ada did encounter a Garrador, and it was basically a reuse scenario from the main game of the original version of Resident Evil 4, which was very odd. Also, you can see her knife. Her knife looks very weird. That's so odd. I've never seen a knife like that in any game ever. I see this in like anime or like when you're in the future or something. But this kind of knife looks very strange. I don't know what kind of knife that is, and I imagine its durability is going to be horrendous. But at least Ada's using this kind of special knife. Like, why would Leon be using the combat knife from Resident Evil 2 Remilk that is somehow the same knife that Marvin gave to him, even though he broke that knife many times trying to use it in Resident Evil 2 Remilk? Why would he bring that kind of police knife to military scenarios or when you're dealing with like terrorist organizations or cults? Why would he do that? That's so stupid. I get that he's holding on to trauma, or at least it's meant to be conveyed as such from Resident Evil 2 Remake, even though the transition from Resident Evil 2 Remake to Resident Evil 4 Remake was done poorly with the screenplay. But just keep that kind of knife as like a memento or like in a safe area. Why are you bringing it along with you on your missions? And if you supposedly had like respect for Krauser, you'd be using a knife provided by him, right? Why not use the knife that you used back when you fought Krauser or when he was your mentor, Leon? Since you seem to revere him so much so that you decided to finish him off honorably by just stabbing him like that, and then you say, "Oh, I trained you well, Leon," and then you respond back with respect. Like, what the hell is wrong with you, Leon? That is so stupid. That is really stupid. But this is an armored Garrador. You can crouch under that, and she's fighting Armaduros. So you never fought Armaduros in the original version of the Separate Ways DLC.
You two are infected.
So this is Vertigo.
You must already feel the effects, eh?
Has this Vertigo somehow merged those parasite staffs into its arm? That's a little weird. Or did Ada somehow blow off the arm, and now he's just regenerated it, or like the parasite has done something to grow in that area? That's weird. But Vertigo's origins in Resident Evil 4 Remake are a little odd, because in the original version of Resident Evil 4, we know that Vertigo was meant to be an insect-parasite hybrid. I don't remember if there were other species as well. I think it was primarily insect and the Plaga genes merging together. But in Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's apparently some random guy who got immersed in black liquid. That's at least what I remember, but what the hell does the black liquid have to do with this? And that's another question as well. Will they actually talk about the crimson flames and the blue flames and the black liquid, those fantasy elements that are just completely forgotten about once you get to Chapter 13? What if, like, the blue flames in this castle area are somehow going to be advantageous against this guy? Because Vertigo's exoskeleton is so powerful and so resilient that Leon had to use liquid nitrogen against him. And I'm guessing Ada doesn't have access to liquid nitrogen, so she has to think of some other way. Like, why not just use the crimson flames or the blue flames? Or is that another thing as well? Is this R mutation triggered by the crimson flames? Like, how is it that this guy is not going to be affected by the crimson flames? Oh my god. The amount of inconsistencies I'm already thinking of with the Crimson Flames and the Blue Flames is gonna be extreme. And I just know it's not gonna make any sense with the way they've done the story here. And it's really stupid how he's accompanied by Ganado now. Why, though? Like, why would he have Ganado supporting him? Or her, or whatever the hell this gender is. Is this Vertigo too much of a pussy to handle Ada? Or, I'm sorry, you three, not Vertigo? If that's apparently what I'm supposed to think now. Like, why did they have to favor this model of putting enemies alongside these bosses? It was so unnecessary for Sadler to have Navisador supporting him, even though they did drop ammo and they died really fast after one shot from any weapon. But this is just going to be awkward in the context of the gameplay of Resident Evil 4 Remake.
I need to put that thing down.
And that's another thing as well. The original version of the Separate Ways DLC did not have any difficulties, so I don't know if this DLC will have difficulty modes as well.
I need to put that thing down.
There are things I...
Where's this taking place? I'm not entirely sure where this takes place.
There are things I must set right.
Why is this so important to you?
This is interesting. So they brought back the laser room area, so I'm guessing this is some other part of the island area. Like, why have they taken such sequences from the original version of Resident Evil 4 and put it into the DLC? What's up with that? I don't understand why they've done that. That's a little odd.
Oh, Ada. What to do with you?
What to do with you? I guess that's a Wesker quote I can kinda understand.
Luis, the goodbye's gonna have to wait.
Again, why is she attributing such personal value in Louise? The goodbye's gonna have to wait. Like, why is she attaching herself personally to Louise? I don't understand. So there's the amber sample. Well, they actually expand upon this as well, because another thing as well is that for some reason in Resident Evil 4 Remilk, the superior species Plaga is different to the dominant Plaga, which is different to the subordinate Plaga. Like, Sadler's Plaga is the dominant Plaga, but then some superior species Plaga that we never get to see is apparently in the middle being mass-produced. Is that what the amber's related to? I don't understand. Like, is the amber containing the superior species Plaga or some other Plaga? Why would they introduce the superior species Plaga and then not show us exactly what it is? I don't understand. That's really dumb. And Ada is infected right here. It looks like she's hallucinating during this one because the coloration's a little weird. And she's in the Navisador nest. So this is down in the mine area. Wow, she's really getting around. I don't know how she's getting around to where Leon is. Is this where she's getting a sample? Why would she be down here? And you can see there's a portion of the amber right there on that crane. So you get to fight, or I'm guessing this is the cutscene though. Maybe Ada's not gonna be able to stand a chance against U3, and she has to run away because of his exoskeleton. I don't know. And Ashley's shown here for some reason, and somebody comes out from behind there. I'm not entirely sure who that is. Could that be the actual U3? Because like the walls are pretty narrow, and that hand looks kind of familiar. I mean, it looks pretty big as well, like U3's hand. I don't know. And this is where she's encountering Sadler, which I imagine is going to be a piece of shit fight. Ugh. There wasn't a single iconic moment from the original version of Resident Evil 4 that was reimagined to an acceptable degree. They're gonna make this really shit. I just know it.
Whose blood are you here for this time?
Whose blood are you here for this time?
That all depends on you.
So this is very weird. Why would Wesker go out of his way to come here? I don't understand how this is possible. So like, is this taking place sometime after? No, it couldn't be though. I don't understand. So when is this taking place? Because we know that Ada betrayed Wesker. And apparently in Resident Evil 4 Remilk, it was for some noble deed to ensure that Wesker didn't try to annihilate the human race, even though it's not going to mean anything. Whereas in the original version of Resident Evil 4, she cut loyalties with Wesker. I don't remember the reason for her doing that. I think she gave the sample to another organization. I don't know if it was Tricell. I think Wesker was with Tricell during the events of the original Resident Evil 4. Or he was with the rival organization, and then the rival organization collapsed, and then he found Tricell. I'm just really confused by this scene, because, like, why would Wesker come here? And why would Ada meet up with Wesker out of the blue after she betrayed him? This is so confusing, and also, it doesn't make any sense for Wesker to behave like this. Wesker's not the type of person to go out of his way to go into the field and deal with his enemies. It's not in his character. It's not in his mastermind nature. Like, he has more pressing matters to engage with. He's dealing with other black market dealers, other organizations like the Connections, who are working on the Mutamycete. He's also working to sell whatever data he's found to other organizations to make money to contribute to his own research, because he's working on the Ouroboros virus at this moment. He's the kind of person who would let his underlings handle all this tedious stuff. Like, why would he go out of his way to go after Ada? I don't understand. It doesn't even matter that Ada betrayed Wesker in the original version of Resident Evil 4, because Wesker managed to extract a dominant Plaga from Krauser's dead body. But here he's just taking it so personally. I don't really understand. This doesn't feel like a Wesker thing to go out into the field like this just to deal with some personal nuisance. Like, why would he do this? I don't like this. And the placement within the timeline is very confusing. Like, this is an anti-Wesker thing. I just don't get it. And that ends the trailers right here, so I'm just getting a lot of mixed signals, and I know it's going to be really shit. I've already acknowledged some problems with the voice acting, the character portrayals, certain elements with the gameplay that might be bad. And I say might be bad, I know they're going to be bad. Some additional enemies that Ada will be encountering in this DLC. Some other things as well. I mean, it's a good thing as well that Separate Ways is releasing in 3 days, because I can then experience this travesty very quickly. Like, I'm really glad they're doing this just so I can experience this travesty with my own eyes through my own gameplay. I just can't wait to see how bad this DLC is going to be. I just know it's going to be really shit with its story and its character portrayals and gameplay. But yeah, this concludes my reaction video.